heard anything about the method they've used in Spain to try and do the testing of whether people have thalidomide or not?
No, I was asked to involve myself in such testing in 2004, and I wrote a fair amount of material which I sent to the Spanish Thalidomide Association, which I then sent to the then government, who expressed themselves, I understand, as being very interested and willing to help the Spanish Thalidomide Association. I was invited to go over there to help in the assessment process. Then everything went dead, and then there was the bomb outrage in Madrid, and then there was a change of government. Then there was a time when there was no interest, apparently, in any compensation for the Spanish thalidomiders, but hopefully that is changing.
Well, I believe they have started the investigation, and I have seen nobody so far who started the protocol merely by photographs of the individuals and asking proof of whether the mother had, by prescriptions or existing pills, and finding pediatricians to sign that they had given this medication to these mothers.
Well, I would criticize that approach quite severely. In my opinion, it depends a lot on what your motive is. If your motive is to have a kind of show trial where the outcome is already decided, and supposing you say, we will compensate maybe 5 or 10% of the claimants so that we can show the world that we have done the moral thing, you can design an investigation that will justify that type of false result. My contribution would be this. Having studied a good deal of the German literature which was written at or shortly after the epidemic time, in 1959 to 1961, which is a time when information was fresh, investigations there coincide with my findings in the British thalidomiders, that actual written evidence of prescription, as far as the English and as far as the German experience is concerned, was very, very rarely available. Why it was so unavailable, you can have any theories you like. I do not subscribe to the idea that doctors were afraid of being part of a legal process and therefore destroyed it. I think it is much more likely that in the investigations, prescriptions were sent to lawyers for their analysis and were never returned. I think that is a much more likely event. The fact is that in the ones that I saw, a clear history of ingestion was so rare, and if there was a history of actually taking the drug, it was so much hearsay that I took the view that if somebody was conceived at a time when thalidomide was available in the environment, that was enough grounds to create a possibility of a thalidomide effect. I think it is very important to stop hiding behind a written pattern of prescription, unless the situation in Spain is totally different from what it was in Germany and in Britain. There, if it was different, then obviously different things apply.
Because obviously somebody may have been prescribed it, may not have taken it.
Indeed, they may have all these things were gone into. Widukind Lenz and Weikert and Wiedemann and various other people who researched these things found that there were as many humans who said they had taken it when there was no evidence they had, as those who fiercely denied taking it, again, when there was evidence that they had, and the opposite as well, they just did not correspond to reality, except under one circumstance. If there was some exceptional circumstance, for instance, there was a mother who, early in pregnancy, there was a fire in her house, and she was evacuated, had inhaled some smoke, and was sedated in the hospital that she was taken to. She then went home again and was eventually delivered of a thalidomide-affected child. She stated to Widukind Lenz that under no circumstances would she ever have taken any drug because she was aware of the possible dangers of drugs in pregnancy. It was only when the protocols of the hospital were examined eventually that it was found that a hospital doctor, without her knowledge, had given her thalidomide. It is this type of difficult circumstance that I think is behind the reason why so many failures of proof occurred. And so in the end, you have to apply the thing that if the individual has a pattern that is consistent with thalidomide, and if the conception was at a time when thalidomide was available, it is more likely than not that this was cause and effect. If, on the other hand, there was a typical pattern, but conception, say, before thalidomide was invented, or after an arbitrary number of years, then it becomes increasingly unlikely that there was a thalidomide link. Yes, of course there were individuals who carried thalidomide in their pockets or in the home medical cabinet or in their bag because they may have thought it helped the headache, they may have thought it helped their migraine. These were things for which it was prescribed, and human beings being what they are, if something has done you good, then you may go to your friend, or your friend may come to you and say, do you have something? And say, yes, I've got something in my handbag that helped me. I went to my own medical cabinet and found that we still had about 5 or 6 different medicine containers that were more than 10 years old. And if you, this is my cat who's taking part in the talk, and if you have moved house frequently, that doesn't apply. But for instance, if there was somebody who delivered a thalidomide typical child, say 6 or 7 years after the drug was withdrawn in 1961, and if such a person failed to stay in one address, then the chances, of actually being thalidomide, if they stayed at one address, were fairly high. If, on the other hand, they moved around, then the chance will be very low. I mean, that's just common sense.
What about, I've heard also that just by touching the drug, it can be dangerous. Is this true?
I have no information. Okay. There is a slight information that it could cause trouble via the semen. So that if the father was taking the drug, that the dose was sufficiently small under those circumstances to cause trouble. Okay. But I've not seen the actual proof of that.
Or of epidermis either.
Exactly that. But I mean, the dose was 10 milligrams a tablet, and you would hardly crush tablets and then bathe in the thing, so.
No, because I was told also that women were not allowed to work in the factory where it was made because it's highly dangerous.
Well, inhalation, you see, if there was dust, thalidomide dust in the air, over a longish period, that could add up to a reasonable quantity. And absorption through the lung is quite easy for many things.
Because yesterday Martin also showed us Janet McCready's book of the study of when one tablet, depending on what period of pregnancy the tablet was taken, the damage it could do to the fetus.
Yeah.
Fetus, sorry.
Yes.
I don't know what else.
You see, that is a very interesting, and I think it's virtually a unique property of the drug. And it's based on the fact that the drug is absorbed. The maximum concentration is quite early, and it is then destroyed very quickly. And therefore, for any one tablet, that will only affect the pregnancy at a particular moment. And if it's taken an hour later, it will be a different moment. And development in the fetus is so rapid at this early time that the exact timing, which of course is not remembered, but the exact timing will undoubtedly cause either this or that or the other. Why in individuals it causes, say, of 5 possibilities, just one of the 5 in one individual, all 5 in another, and maybe 2 or 3 of the 5, but different ones in other individuals, that isn't known. But even that could depend on the exact timing of the ingestion.